Alright, hello gamers. Today important topic. Well, it is not important, but it's important for me. A little background. I am now 33 years old and I have been playing video games since I can basically remember. And we've been through some shit. So basically, as far as I can remember, the one platform I was playing on was just Windows, right? PC gaming. And Windows was always the thing that it just works, right? You slap it on. Of course, there's a learning process to learning Windows as well, but as we all know, it's super simple and generally speaking, everybody can figure it out, right? If they have a little know-how and the willingness to learn stuff, they will learn it, right? So I went through like almost every single possible commonly known Windows version, starting from Windows 98, I believe. Then I had some experience on Windows Millennium, if anyone ever heard about that. Then on my first real computer I had Windows 2000. It was like year 2001 or something like that, on a beefy 800 megahertz Pentium 3 processor with GPU TNT2, I believe it was, 32 megabytes of RAM. It was quite a beefy graphics card. It couldn't run GTA Vice City, by the way. So lower the music volume a little bit. So then I had my second computer that I assembled myself for the first time. Had a Core 2 Duo CPU, had some graphics card that I picked myself that was a little bit cheaper, but it worked really well, right? I played like Battlefield on it, stuff like that. But it was always Windows. I never bothered to learn Linux. And even though I had some experience with it from my friend that gave me like a USB stick with Ubuntu on it, I never bothered to learn it, or even, it was just too confusing for me, and the support for video games was almost non-existent back then, the way I understand it. But recently I was playing my my game, the Deadlock, the shooter game that I like quite a bit, and I was having some weird performance problems, like constant stutters, FPS drops, and even though my frame rates were showing like pretty high, right, the actual game performance was kind of bad. Like you could feel that there was some performance drops in the background, and I couldn't figure out. I just couldn't make out what is it. And I was like, at one point, and trust me, I tried every single thing. I tried switching all the different settings, all the graphical settings in game, Vulkan, direct X rendering. I changed resolutions, full screen windowed, borderless windowed, full screen, real full screen, to try unplugging my second display. I tried changing core affinities. I even disabled the performance cores on my CPU, because as you know, for example, my CPU that I have currently right now, it has 6 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores, and I changed the affinity for the cores. I made my Deadlock run only on the performance cores without hyper-threading. I changed every single setting you can think of. I basically run. I tried different drivers, and I still had the stutters, and I wasn't quite happy with the performance. So I was like, you know what? Frick, I'm gonna install Linux and see how it runs on Linux, because there's no way it's a hardware problem at that point. it has to be like software problem somewhere, and I couldn't figure out what it is. So I grabbed the distribution of Linux called CachyOS, which is right here. Right, I grabbed CachyOS, cachy.os.org. I grabbed it, I installed it. The process was very simple. If you have some experience in computing, you should be able to figure out. And I already had Steam installed on my Windows, right? But first, I had to figure out my my things. I had to mount my disks because some of them are like NTFS file system, which is for my Windows, right? So that was kind of difficult for me to figure out. But I mounted them correctly in the fstab file and stuff like that, and now it works well. But on a fresh install, it will be way easier, by the way. But anyways, I figured that out. And I installed the Steam on the Linux. I've put the compatibility here. Proton CachyOS compatibility function. That's all I've done. And Vulkan here. I don't think it's even necessary, but I've put it anyway. I put the compatibility here, and there it is. Runs smoothly. You can see the performance graph on the top left. You can see this line, it's super flat. From my experience on Windows, it would be like all jagged lines all over the place, which means that either GPU or CPU or something couldn't keep up with the generating the frames, right? So I have the frames capped at 144. I can uncap them. It will go to like 230. It's pretty normal FPS in the hideout for me. But the most important part is the game plays smoothly. I don't feel any stutters or anything right now. Even in an actual game, in heavy fights, like people are shooting, throwing abilities around and stuff, you don't feel the frames drop or game just slugging down. So I can move around, I can look around, game works smoothly, right? This FPS here, 250, normally it wouldn't be achievable for me. Normally I would be like at 180 or something on Windows. But like I said, I still had those stutters, which was incredibly annoying. Like, you're trying to shoot people, but your game stutters and you cannot because... Right? So if you go downstairs, there's less things to render. The FPS should go a little bit up. 230, 180. But just to conserve power and not to have GPU running at 100% at all times, I have this command on. By the way, I also heard, I've read on internet, if you have a source engine game like CS, Dota or whatever, you shouldn't cap the frames here in console. You should cap it elsewhere, like in your NVIDIA drivers or something. But I only had that issue on Windows, not on Linux, so it works here. Either way, as you can see, game runs smoothly. I'm about to die. And that's it. So, how was the process for me? To get Deadlock to work in Steam was... I'm still using the same files, as in... I have my Steam library here on my SSD. This is exactly the same files that Windows uses, right? I didn't have to install it again. The only thing I've done was do the compatibility setting like I showed you before, and I pressed play and it worked out of the box. So I was super impressed with how that works on Linux. I was under impression that I would need to do a lot of stuff to make it work, but apparently not. So the main problem is this is a modern game, and as far as I understand, Valve makes their games these days specifically so they work on Linux, right? Because they're focused on expanding the Linux player base, specifically like the customer base. They want to make Linux as easy and plug and play as possible. So Deadlock was super easy to do, right? But I also added Ascension WoW client here. Let's find out if it works. It takes a while to load. Will it load? It loaded last time. Well, it doesn't want to cooperate. I guess not. Let's try it again. Yeah, so I'm still figuring out settings for certain games that are not native to Steam. I got Ascension to work before, but it doesn't work now for some reason. Which is a shame, but we will fix it out somehow. So yeah, as you can see, being a Linux gamer, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. You never know what you get. But different games, Helldivers. I hope it's not gonna be super loud. The anti-cheat is loading. There we go, we're in a game. I don't know if you guys see it, but there's like 1 pixel border over my screen. Oh, there it is, it's gone. But here my FPS is like 60. Kind of feels sluggish a bit. Yeah, but in Helldivers I always had like performance wasn't that great. Render scale. Thing says 100 FPS, but it honestly doesn't feel like 100 FPS. It feels like sluggish. But I guess coming from Deadlock, which is extremely smooth, coming to this.
Mission coordinates locked. Hellpods prime. Engaging orbital thrusters. Orbit synchronized. Launch initiated.
I'm gonna mute Helldivers real quick. Super loud. Alright, so we're in game. FPS is looking good. Yeah, that's good performance. Find some bugs. Okay, some bugs are coming. So either way, you get the idea. The game is running. PoE. Let's try this out. Should be working properly. As far as I understand, PoE is also developed for Linux actively. Money! A little bit of money at least. Let's load the map real quick. Some effects are still loading because I don't see my herald of ash pops. That's often the case with when PoEs load. Oh, there it is. That was a herald pop. The game is loading the shaders and whatnot, and before that happens, you don't see some graphical effects. But now that's loaded in. So this is the blight mechanic in PoE, which spawns a bunch of monsters. And this one is like infamous for breaking even like hard, really good PCs. Because there's so many effects happening at the same time. And I don't know what's exactly... The game looks a little bit different even on Linux. I'm not sure if it's because of like my screen settings or whatever. Technically speaking, it's the same game, right? But it just looks a little bit different. Right now, FPS dipping to 50 already. As you can see, the CPU is getting quite swamped right now. 73%. GPU a little bit peaking as well. Okay, that's the blight. Scarabs. Nothing burger. The league was pretty fun for me, but it got boring pretty quickly. This is still my character I league started with. This map layout is awful, man. Britannia is leaded. Map complete. So PoE works just fine, right? I could load PoE too, but I don't think I have it installed. Kind of curious actually about PoE 2 because I had massive issues with PoE 2 loading times. Oh yeah, I don't have Steam version of PoE 2. Never mind. I have to contact the support for it. So as you can see, the things just work, right? Generally speaking. Ascension does work, but it worked like a couple days ago, so I'm not sure if an update broke it or I broke it. That could also be because I was playing around with the drivers and stuff. I think I can try removing this command for a second. What was the text file thing? Let's see if I remove the command line. No, it bricks. Yeah, I guess I broke it somewhere. But I can tell you it used to work, for me at least. Either way, my overall experience... Oh, one big thing. Big thing, because I really like, for making videos, I really like using QuickSync, which is the integrated GPU on your processor for video encoding. And it took me hours to figure out how to make it work on Linux, but I finally done it. Turns out it needed just like a small... It needed this in environment variables, and now it works. This basically forces OBS to use the iGPU instead of NVIDIA graphics card to encode stuff. So quite happy about that. So a little bit more of a technical video today, not really video game stuff, but if you never tried using Linux, I would highly recommend, because the performance gains are definitely there, and it's not like back in the day, right? Windows was the gaming platform. I think the tides are actually shifting now, because I'm a die-hard Windows enthusiast. At least I used to be. Now I'm kind of Windows hater, and I have been using Linux for past week or whatever, and has been quite enjoyable experience. So it is a learning process though. You have to Google a lot, you have to read a lot, and it's not as plug and play as you might think. There's probably easier distributions as well. I've heard that like Bazite is very good for gaming, but it also depends what kinds of games do you play. If you play like old games that aren't on Steam, it might be a little bit more difficult to find the correct settings for stuff. But I would highly suggest to try it out, see if you like it, because you might be positively surprised like I was. And I really like the control that you have over stuff. I don't really like being surveilled at all times by Windows. So yeah, a little bit of a talking video today. Later on I will probably make a video about Mythic Zeros in Ascension, if I get it to work on Linux. If not, I'll play it on Windows. It's just simple restart. Now that's another thing that you can do. Let's say if you struggle in performance in one game, like I did. I struggled with performance on Deadlock. You can play it on Linux, but if you have another game that only works on Windows and you don't know how to make it work on Linux, you just dual boot. You reboot your computer, you start the Windows, and you play the other game. Takes a little bit of time, but simple enough, right? Anyways, that's it for the video. A lot of talking today, a little bit less gameplay, but hope you learned something or got something interesting out of it. So, see you.